Designates payroll periods, pay dates, prescribes requirements with respect to official fidelity bonds, and repeals ordinance number 13-50 and all amendments thereto, said ordinance to be known as the salary ordinance of 2014. This measure also covers other matters relating to the compensation and temporary employment of county employees. Reference Communication 783, introduced by Ms. Poindexter.
May I have a motion to approve Bill 231? It's been moved by Councilmember Kanua, seconded by Councilmember Eoff. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Ford.
Thank you. Council members, I direct your attention to communication number 783.1. And I move to amend Bill 231 with the contents of communication 783.1. Thank you. In looking at the bill itself, you will notice that the CA1 and CA2 positions, which are Council Aide 1, which is for all of us council members, and the CA2 position, which reports who reports to the chair, you will see that they stop at step C and D, which are, in my opinion, pitifully low. My staff and I have had multiple and extensive conversations with Ms. Toriano of HR, the head of HR. And first of all, we as the legislative branch can do anything we want. That's number one. We do not have to follow the collective bargaining. However, if you do follow collective bargaining and look at the CA1 position or CA2, those are comparable to an SR10 clerk position. And when you look at the collective bargaining steps for the SR10, it goes up to step M, which is almost a little over $44,000. We stop at step either C or D at $31,000, which again, in my opinion, is pitifully low. So what I have done, the only changes I've made in this amendment is to increase the steps to H for the CA1 and CA2 positions to get them up to where they should be after 7, 8 years or a couple of terms or 3 terms, whatever it is. Because I think we all have council aides. We all know that they're working very, very hard. We also know that the skill level they come in with or they develop while they're here is immense, and we all know we could not run our districts without these people. And to pay them $31,000 with the skill sets that they develop and or have when they come in, to me, is just not reasonable. So I'm hoping we will all support these pay step increases, which are based on 5% over the previous step for each one of them, and give these people who have been sitting here at these pitiful salaries, and my staff has been sitting there forever, and I know some of yours are all sitting there forever too. So it's demoralizing to get a pay that's that low for the work that they're doing and then never give them a pay increase. Thank you.
Councilmember Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this. I agree. It was interesting to see that when we first came in, what that number was and how it's been there. And our staff does work really, really hard. And I think this gives them some range, something to look forward to, and what they would deserve. Absolutely so. I support this amendment.
Councilmember Elegant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to say thank you, Councilmember Ford, for bringing this up, because I support you on this amendment, and I wish that it could even be higher, to be honest with you, or maybe the same as C2, as C1, where they get $40,000 instead of the $38,000. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair?
Councilmember Onishi?
No, was somebody else going to speak before me?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You can go ahead, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, on the amendment, I need to kind of clarify about what was just said earlier about the year, I guess, the step movements, and I need to bring Sharon up because she needs to kind of explain a little bit. In civil service, yes, there are like SR ratings and so forth, but they go by years of service. Okay, so most council staff will be here for basically 8 years if a council member is in that position. And so basically you have like just like 4-step movements. So Ms. Tariano, can you please explain a little bit the difference between like a civil service worker and an appointed position worker? I mean, because of like how, like, you know, through collective bargaining, they get, the civil service worker gets like a step movements because of years of service. Because basically they have like a 4% pay raise, right? And then they also have like that other one where years of service, you move up a step and so forth, correct?
Councilman Onishi is correct. However, I would like to add a caveat. With collective bargaining, increases are negotiated, and there are 2 ways you see an increase. It's across the board, where we just take the salary range and we increase it by a given percent, or the other means or mechanism being the step movement. I did not bring a collective bargaining agreement with me. However, the theory being you spend X amount of years on step A, and then you progress to B. You complete X amount of years of service on step B, and you go to step C. In recognizing that step A through H is being proposed, my impression is that it represents 8 years, generally speaking, and that is tied to the term of a council member. I could be wrong, but that's
Well, Ms.
what
Ford
my
said
impression
you had a
is.
long discussion. I mean, you know, she had a long discussion with you guys, so could you? I guess,
We've had
kinda-
2 discussions, but I would not want to speak for Councilman Ford, given that she's here and present. But I would like to point out to the council that in the salary ordinance, it reads, "The council chairperson may appoint employees to any of the steps within the appropriate pay grade and may authorize and approve any step movements along the appropriate pay grade." You are not tied to number of years of service at any particular step should you decide to add additional steps in the current salary ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
You're
And,
welcome.
Like for me, if I'm looking at this, you know, I would agree upon this if we had in there that you get your step movements depending on the years of service that you have served. Because I couldn't see someone with a CA1 coming in, and now if we pass this, they could go all the way to H, which is 38,000. And my staff, who's been in this in appointed position for like maybe like 6 years or close to 8 years, going to be making the same amount, because I could put her at 38,000 too, but making the same amount who someone just came in like 2 years. And to me, that's where it's not fair. And so, to me, if this is going to be put in, it should be where, as the council member wins their next term, then the staff can move up to a next level. And to me, that would be the most fairest way. And I think it would also be kind of like the same way as how I think our civil service is, because I think they like every
Mirror.
right.
Almost mirroring
Right.
what we have in collective bargaining.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I would like to, see. And then the other thing is I wanted to ask either Chairman Yoshimoto or Mr. Clerk, Stuart Maeda, a question. Madam Chair, can I do that?
Councilmember, Yoshimoto? It's a question regarding this, correct?
Yes, correct. And so my
Okay.
question to either Chairman Yoshimoto or to Stuart Maeda is that if this is approved, will the council members be able to give these raises to those clerks? And is it going to be budgeted in this coming fiscal year?
Mr. Onishi? Well, we're talking hypothetically, well, let me focus on what we're doing, or what Ms. Ford is trying to do. All she's trying to do is provide additional steps. There's nothing here describing, what criteria or what procedures we're going to put in place or implement as far as how the steps are going to be changed. In
No,
terms of-
excuse me, Mr. Yoshimoto. My question is, if we approve this, okay, and then the council members are allowed to give their staff this pay raises, okay, would we have that in the budget for this coming fiscal year? Was this
No.
already budgeted, this step movements?
No.
No, okay, thank you. I yield.
Are you done? Okay. Councilmember Willie?
I support this. I think that this is very equitable. I do disagree with Councilmember Onishi that it should necessarily be based on seniority in this office. As per, if you have a clerk that may already have 8-10 years of experience in different departments and different, whether it's other county offices or agencies or other state agencies. So I think that I do think one has to determine what is appropriate, but I don't think someone just coming in as a clerk in the county council and doing X number of years here necessarily we should only be looking at seniority in county council. So I think I'll yield and listen to any other comments, but I do think this is important. Oh, I do want to ask a question. Are we just doing this, the amendment right now, so my other questions on the rest of the bill should be held? Okay, so I support this, and as the chair said, what we're doing is we're just adding the additional steps here. It is not budgeted at this time, and we're providing the opportunity, and we could have further discussion on how these things are determined.
Councilmember Yoshimoto?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll speak in support of this amendment, and yeah, basically just to stay on topic, this just provides a better range or a wider range for salaries that we talked about, I think, last year. So this is the first step, and if we want to implement other changes that Ms. Willie just referenced, then, that can be part of the next steps that are taken after this, assuming, this passes. So I support this. Thank you.
Okay, so now, I don't see any lights. I'm going to just... Okay, Councilmember Eoff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I've always felt that there was too much of a discrepancy between the assistant's pay and the council aide pay. Because we work in a pod, we work closely with one another, and everybody's sharing the load. And just for consistency or cohesiveness and self-esteem for everybody within the pod, I feel like the numbers should be a little bit closer. So I support the council aide position being able to go a little bit higher than where it is now, because it's quite a bit lower than the assistant's pay. I think we do have to work out some of the questions that are coming up here today, like where the money's going to come from if it's not in the budget, and what is the criteria for giving somebody a step. But what I've understood in the past is that the council member may request that his staff be raised a step, but I believe the council chair would need to approve it. So we do have that, and I guess I'm not sure where else in our rules we might clarify how the steps come about and whether we have money in the budget. But I think we should work on those things, and we should try and make it so that the two positions are a little bit closer aligned. I know one of them does require certain skills that the other one may not, but in the end, everybody's working, really hard in all the offices together. So thank you, Ms. Ford. I support this amendment.
Councilmember Kanuha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm getting so confused. Anyways, I fully support this as well. if it's not in the budget, the chairperson, if somebody requests, the additional step increase and it's not in the budget, the chair can't increase with that additional step. So that's kind of where I'm looking at, to have those extra steps for later on. If we do have additional budget money for this salary, then there's a possibility for the increase in somebody who, is suitable for that extra increase. So if there's not any money in the budget for the increase, I don't see a problem there. We're not gonna, the chair has that decision to say yes or no, and if there's no money, he's gonna say no. It just seems it seems simple to me, but I think these additional steps are necessary, especially for the CA1 and CA2s.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
I'll give, yes.
Yeah, I want to make a comment after.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify what Ms. Willie had mentioned about someone coming in from another county agency or whatever, or or if they're within the council services or within the staff, or the county council staff. But Sharon, if someone say is like an accountant 1 and they get promoted to an accountant 2.
Yes.
Their step movement is it's not going to be where it's going to drastic, where it's going to move like 5 steps higher, right? It'll be like kind of comparable to what they were already making.
The best way to answer that is, generally speaking, that is correct. It's the same bargaining unit.
Right.
An accountant 1 is in a given salary range. The next level up, being an accountant 2, would take it to a higher salary range. The difference between the salary ranges is probably
let me rephrase this. Okay, so say like an accountant 1 is like an SR 10M. Okay, and is making maybe like $50,000.
Okay.
And then now they're going to be promoted to an accountant 2, and then starting base pay at SR say 12A is like 52.
Don't think we would take the employee all the way back down to step A.
Oh, but even though
We
they make
would
it
move
50,
them to the higher salary range from an SR 10 to an SR 12.
right?
And possibly leave them at step M.
So they'll be making that whatever that.
They feel an increase and not a decrease in pay.
No. So I'm saying they're making 50, right? At SR 10M. Okay.
Okay.
And then now they go to like accountant 2, which is an SR 12A. Okay, but then the increase is like, say now they're going to be making 53,000. So from 50,000, they move to the accountant.
You are correct in that there is an increase if you go 50,000 to 53,000. What I don't want to confuse or mislead the council on is step A is an entry level. So you would never see,
Okay, so they might go to a B.
no, it'd probably be much higher, like from an M to an M.
Well, because when I got all these promotions, I didn't really basically get those major steps, but okay.
I would have to look at what bargaining unit.
It was 13.
13,
Yeah.
into a 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean that's okay. Okay. But
$3,000 increase for a promotion opportunity is reasonable.
yeah, okay. But I just wanted to kind of clarify. I mean, like how how civil service kind of works. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Closing, I'm going to say that I definitely don't support this, and the reason why is this. Back then, we used to have the county council, the aides and the legislative assistants everybody shared them. And then this came into play where they introduced this bill so that we would have separate legislative assistants and our council aides because of fairness. I spoke with Mr. Higa, who designed this bill, and the whole purpose was having the ABCD is every council member has 2-year terms. So you have your first term, second term, third term, fourth term. If the council member doesn't win, and like Mr. Council Member Onishi alluded to the fact that should a new council member begin. It breaks that service. And what we got to remember is, council member Onishi.
Okay, I think I gotta clarify, or kind of clear what I was trying to say, is that I base my thoughts on how the civil service workers get their pay raises by years of service, which you have mentioned, like how with our staff. Okay, so if you win your first term, like you said, you start at A. It's like someone who coming into the county as a civil service worker, they start at A step. Then, if I do get reelected, then that gives my staff 4 years, and so now they get a step movement. And that's how, like, in one raise with a civil service worker, they go depending on years of service, and they get unstep movement. So that's what I was trying to say. I wasn't comparing where these guys get like 20 years of county council staff years, and then they're going to get like those 5 steps or whatever steps. To me, is as a council member, the staff comes in at the entry level, and as a council member wins their terms, then they get that next step movement. So if you looked at how this thing is already done, like in CA1, you get A, B, C, D. So that's for the 4 terms. Like Ms. Ariano had mentioned, I guess when you looked at this, right, it's kind of basically what it looks like. Yeah, okay? And so that's what I was saying, that as you go on, because it is like each, that staff member, by the end of D, they're going to have like 8 years of service. So that's why you can justify that they're going to get the D. Whereas now, when new member comes in, a council member comes in when I'm on D step, their staff will get the A, which is 27,000. And then hopefully the council member wins, and then they can move up the staff. But that's what I kind of meant. That's why, but I compared the civil service worker to this, how our appointed staff is kind of like the same, like of years of service. So that's why I wanted to clarify, and then not like saying that if, say, like Darlene had 15 years, she should be getting like all this, like maybe up to 8 step or whatever. No, but it's just going within the terms of the council member. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other discussion? Councilmember Willie.
A question in terms of, on page 3D, where it says exempt positions covered by this ordinance, which have been assigned to classifications and pay grades by the Director of Human Services, shall be paid at the excluded managerial EM, salary range, SR, and blue-collar BC rates contained in appropriate collective bargaining contracts and executive orders. Can someone translate that for me?
This is Sharon Toriano. That's a good question. Where you have positions in the legislative branch that have been classified, basically that means if I've got a clerk 3 in the executive branch and you have a clerk 3 in the legislative branch, both positions have been classified as a clerk 3. And so the pay would follow equally. An SR10, clerk 3 in executive branch, a clerk 3 in the legislative branch, SR10.
Okay, I still don't fully understand what that means. So on the county council, you're saying, and then say in the finance department, you're saying that the rates are the same? Are we only talking exempt positions covered by this ordinance? The excluded managerial salary range. Who are the managerial salary range? Who's covered by this managerial salary range?
I have division heads that are covered under excluded managerial.
Okay, who are you mean division heads?
Yes.
In terms of division heads. So a division head, can you,
I think,
like...
I'm sorry, I was hoping to add more clarity. Type of appointment, when you talk about an exempt appointment. The incumbent is exempt from civil service. Whereas when you're looking at terminology like excluded managerial salary range, that deals with the pay structure.
Okay, I guess I still don't, could someone else understands this, explain it to me? Okay.
Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see, in this particular Bill 231, I don't see any really managerial positions. These are all the exempt positions that we're dealing with. Salary range, as I mentioned in my amendment, an SR10 is equivalent to a CA1, and so the salary ranges should be comparable. They don't have to be exact, but they got to be comparable. Otherwise, it would be, well, it just wouldn't be fair. So when you look at any of these positions, these are all exempt positions, they're all at will, and you'll see that most of them go well beyond 4 steps. Some of them go as high as L, and God knows what else. Anyway, so when you look at D, the one you're talking about, our salary ranges are typically, the SR salary ranges are comparable to those that are in the executive branch for a comparable job. The salaries should be comparable. Now, legally, they don't have to be, but it's only reasonable that they should be. So when you look at these salary ranges, you're looking at exempt employees where the HR has looked at the job description for these employees, compared them to the most comparable staff employees on the executive side, and assigned a comparable salary range, and then adjusted the steps as appropriate. Sharon, how am I doing?
Wow, I'm impressed. But if I could go back, the salary ordinance doesn't only deal with the legislative branch. So if you go to page 5, you will see the assistant housing administrator is tied to the EM salary range. And that's why, for the purposes of this discussion, if we're focusing only on the legislative branch, then yes, we kind of stop off at page 3 and 4.
Okay. I hope that helps, Margaret. I don't know if it does.
I don't know, you know, ever since I learned that, like, our benefits are hooked in some determination we made of some other category of, and I think it was one of these steps, I'm sort of suspicious of anything that I don't understand. So I just find, you know, I don't, I mean, and if I don't understand it, I assume there's a few people in the public that don't understand it. So you know, I really do, I don't feel that we do a good enough job making, sort of when we talk about transparency, what it is we're saying here. The truth is, I still don't understand what that paragraph means in terms of these categories, in terms of page 4 and 5. Anyway, I just want to say I feel that this ordinance is lacking in, for me, transparency, and I would appreciate maybe if something comes ahead that it is clear, or to the extent that other people's pay is somehow linked to something here, I think that should be specified. When our benefits, health benefits, got taken away from us on a vote, that never said anything about that we were linked to that. Okay, I'm giving an example. I don't think, Madam Chair, I'm going off from the subject. I think that it's important. I'm giving an example of why I'm concerned. And I think it's the same type of thing where you have the paragraphs that are too difficult to translate. And I yield.
Thank you. Any other council members? Okay. So, I still, like I said, I don't believe this is fair, because before this bill came into play, we separated and gave each of us one council aide and one legislative assistant. There were a pool of council aides, there were a pool of legislative assistants, And the reason why they separated it is so that it would be fair for each council member to have their own instead of working through the pool. Now, this council is saying the council aide should be, sometimes that's the work of the legislative assistant, so they should be paid accordingly, because now we're changing them to be whatever we want it to be. You know, so we're giving them higher pays because we want to change their classifications because they're doing those types of work. I mean, if you're hired as a clerk, in a clerk position and the rate is so much, but yet that clerk who applies for that clerk position is also, say, has some legal background and is a paralegal, and the person above her is doing that kind of work but has a different title, you cannot say, well, because she has that expertise in some legal stuff, we should give her the higher pay like the other person in the other position. I mean, that's what we as council members are doing, which to me, I'm giving my opinion, okay? I've worked in HR, I've seen that, I think it's wrong, what we're doing, so I'm stating my opinion. I really feel it's wrong. Anyway, Mr. Clerk, will you please call for the vote?
Ms. Dion?
Aye.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Legas?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi?
No.
Ms. Willie?
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Poindexter?
No.
Chair Poindexter, you have 7 ayes and 2 noes on Bill 231 as amended.
Okay, Bill 231 moves as amended with the contents of Communication 783.1, moves forward to council with a positive recommendation. See no further business. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Kern, second moved by Councilmember Kanuha. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.